Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and TV discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and I'm joined by sweet Shanza Kovacs from the internet.
The finale of this season reminded me about the rock group The Hives.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear. And why on earth did Amazon not schedule this to have its finale on Father's Day?
Really, really strange. Well, we are back again this week to talk about the final half of Season 1 of Invincible on Prime. We reviewed the first 4 episodes on HMP episode 359, if you're wondering, and we're going to give our thoughts about the whole season, and if we're looking forward to the next 2 seasons that have already been greenlit. But with that, I guess it's probably fairly decent. Given that, that's usually how it goes. They don't go like, this was trash, renew that for 2 seasons, please. But we'll check all that out. Before we do, though, I do want to say a big thank you to the people that make this show happen and support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Those pillars of the community, of course, get the pre-show, post-show, and the Dinger Zone. But along with all that, you get to vote on a movie that we watch each month. And remember, there are 2 votes this month. Last week was the first one. The last Monday in this month will be the last one. So you, too, can steer the USS HMP. Head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Guys, we do have 2 new people to talk about here this week, and I wanted to give a nickname or 2 here. I hope that is okay. Can I be granted? Is that all right?
I got no problem with it. It's all up to sweet Shanzi from the internet.
We're going to take that as a yes. So first up, we've got Ed Doubleday. Ed is coming in at that $5 level, the backbone level, as I like to call it. Ed, thanks for jumping on board here. And Ed, I got to tell you, I've always loved the name Doubleday. I don't know why. Just rolls off the tongue. Feels like somebody's, ready to get it beaten. So Ed, with the power vested in me, on loan by the great sweet Shanza Kovacs from the internet, on behalf of the internet, I dub thee Double Dismay.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Abner. I like what you chose a lot better.
It's a little better. It's a touch better. And up next, he has been a big supporter of all the things that we've said and done over the years. Welcome back to the table, your friend and mine, Ollie Evans. Ollie, he's come back into the fold. He always knows there's a chair there with his name on it and everything. And, of course, he got a question asked on Falcon and Winter Soldier 30 questions the other day. Big fan of everything we do around here. He comes in at the 4 pounds level, or as I call it, the biscuit level. Again, I'm American. I'm pretty sure that I got that exchange rate wrong. I'm sure it's at least like $300 or something like that. I don't do conversions.
You're right on there. I just pulled out my calculator.
We just let the world sort that out, But of course, as always, we love that support. I don't think we have a nickname for you, Ollie, but if and we don't, now you do. Ollie, with the power vested in me on loan from sweet Shanza Kovacs from the internet, on behalf of the internet, I dub you Ollie Oxenfree. It's not the best nickname in the world, but it's the one that's right.
You think he's heard that one before?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm positive of it. But, like I said, it's not always the best name, but it's the right nickname.
Okay.
So,
I was going to roll with the last one and call him Ollie in quote marks Dale, quote marks Evans.
But if you would like to vote on what we watch, get the pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and yourself a silly nickname, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and join today at a rate, however big or small, that means something to you. And, of course, Breeze Finks at people. Those options are out there for you as well. Links to those in the show note. Thanks to you guys as well. Boost on there, baby. Now, we talked about the first half of Invincible on Prime back in episode 359, but we like to see him jump through a couple of hoops. Bruce, what do you got? And we're going to continue to do these as they go on. So they've got 3 seasons now. So good luck.
Can you guys hear me? Have I been lost to the internet?
We're just going to say
in and out, but we hear you great now.
Yeah, you're fine.
Thank you.
So you're going to see I've got a deep, deep well I can dig from when it comes to a comic book connection.
Good deal.
Because I'm going to start with a quote I've often heard, and I'm not sure who to attribute it to or even if it's real or apocryphal. But it is relevant just the same. It's something to the effect of, quote, the worst creative decision about Spider-Man was to let Peter Parker graduate. Adam, can you attribute that for me? I feel like I've heard you say it more than anyone else.
I don't know. That's a very good question, but I do believe that to be a true thing.
I think it was Zazie Beetz.
I think Zazie
You're
Beetz
right.
said
I'll
that.
just say this. I couldn't find it within 2 minutes on a Google search, and being well known for giving up, I gave up.
Hey, I feel you.
But around the year 2000, Robert Kirkman thought the world needed another high school superhero, one whose drama centered around girls, acne, and homework just as much as it did about supervillains. He also pulled up a bit of the John Hughes father-son conflict to mix into it, but he turned the stakes up not to 11, but more like 11,000. Something else he did, which was wise in 2002, is not start off getting bogged down with origin stories. Instead, when creating the totally new characters for the Guardians of the Globe, he made it easy for you to guess their backgrounds. Take, for instance, Darkwing. I don't need to know the details of his origin story because I've seen at least 8 episodes of Darkwing Duck. I know this guy gets dangerous. War Woman, I figure she's an Amazon. Martian Man, though, I don't really know what his deal is. Maybe he's from Jupiter or something. The guy dressed in red who runs real fast? Well, he's obviously the arch nemesis of Invincible World's Wile E. Coyote, or maybe he's an insensitive depiction of a Latino mouse. I haven't cracked the code on that one yet, but I'll get back to you for season 2. I'm fairly certain the Immortal is the version of Abraham Lincoln who was a vampire hunter, and the Green Ghost is pretty much a buff schmoo. The fish guy is almost certainly Merman from the Masters of the Universe, and Rexplode is Gambit because neither of them will ever get a solo movie. I can do this all day with the characters, but the point is, when the characters are familiar from page 1, you can focus all your effort on the story. Alan Moore understood this. That's why Watchmen characters are thinly veiled versions of universal childhood favorites like Peacemaker, Nightshade, and Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. I'm pretty sure those 3 are who people are talking about when they refer to DC's Trinity, though to be fair, they were Charlton characters first. So Invincible is rich with story and action and gore. Lots and lots of gore. And Reginald Vell Johnson. So that's all I've got this week.
As long as it's got Reginald Val Johnson in me, and for me, it jumps at least one Robin
I think
rating.
you had it right the first time, Adam.
Whatever. I knew what I wanted to say. Whether or not my mouth did, I don't know, but that's what I wanted to say.
So, man, not to just jump to the climax, to the important part here, but you finally did get to see Principal Winslow. Like, I'm sure you noticed him this second time.
Oh
around.
yes, well, I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't watch that episode, or didn't have it. It just didn't register, or whatever. But this last time, yes, it absolutely registered, and it did indeed make my day.
I have to say something about this show that I didn't notice until the second chunk here, which is that this might be the only show where the action fight scenes aren't boring to me.
Oh, really?
Like for instance, the finale of this season, it's never boring and dull. Like when I think of the DC Direct stuff, those fights are so boring to me. But this show, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because I just have interest in the characters. Maybe because I'm looking to parse out what the difference is between the TV show and the comic books that I've read.
So when you're saying fights are boring, you're just talking about animation. I thought you were just saying in general. Okay.
Well, I mean, it also happens in movies too. Like the last 2 X-Men movies were very boring, the fight scenes.
Yeah, most
like
all you can just go is like there was one on a train, but what did that even really consist of? It's not super memorable now.
Right. And so I think that when we look back on this show, and this is just a guess, I think that the big thing we're going to think about is this fight at the end, and how it opens, where Omni-Man just crushes everybody at the beginning of the season, and you should, it's the way that I look at the comic books, and they did it correctly. It's not the same as the comic books, but the same spirit is there, kind of like Marvel does,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they kind of sneak stuff by you on the show about how cheaply they're making their animation, because there is a whole lot of people standing still and just their mouth moving. But because the voice talent is so talented, you're not, at least I didn't until I saw it. You're not noticing what they're getting away with this show.
Can we back up just a second? Because I'm curious if you've been able to identify at all any of the ingredients that have made these fight scenes better than others. Like,
well, one is stakes.
What sells them?
One is stakes. Two is that there's a different reason why people are fighting. Like, it's not your typical, I'm trying to take over the world. Like it is almost in every one of these kind of superhero shows. You know, you have the fight where there's the time, like time affects them differently. People like that's all of those fights are incredible. Then you have the fight between Alan the Alien and Invincible, where it's just a test to see if he's ready, which I think is also amazing. That's an amazing reason to have a fight and to just have a conversation like, hey, why are you fighting me right now? Like all of these things are so much more interesting than, hey, blue light is either coming from the sky or from the ground up to the sky, and now we have to fight to save the world. Like it's so different than what we're used to seeing in a superhero property like this that I just find it far more fascinating. Or like the way that Adam Eve uses her powers is so vastly different than what we're used to seeing.
I also, for me, I think the brutality in the fights comes through in a way that is hard to do successfully in animation.
Also true.
That was going to be my point. Is I thought a lot of that also comes, you know, including what you said there, Sean, but also really includes the fact that these fights are very visceral. There's a lot of just like blood and guts and punching and just like really brutally laid out stuff. So you can see it as on these characters, whereas opposed to something like a lot of the DC directs, maybe somebody will get like a little trail of blood out of the side of their mouth or something, but that's about it. Here, people are getting demolished.
Or a whole head will explode, but it's like comedic. It's interesting, and I think for me, part of the secret to what makes the fights work for me is the sound mix, and the Foley work.
Yes, and here's another thing: is that for me, like the violence does enhance the fight scenes, but only because of what's at stake in the fight scenes. Like, to me, violence, like ultra violence, feels like pornography at times, where it's like, you know, you didn't need to do that there. And that's what a lot of like ultra violent movies feel like to me. But this is not one of those things. And I can't explain to you why it doesn't feel as excessive as, you know, like anything that's on Shudder. But like this feels different for some reason.
Well, yeah, because I think like you just said, though, the reason that it does feel different is because you have the backgrounds of the characters and the stories and the reasons that you're doing what you're doing. So not only does it make you accept that a bit more, is that it allows you to do that. You're more forgiving of it than you would be if the story was kind of so-so.
Sure.
Very true.
But for me, I think you're right, Bruce. The sound is a giant thing in this show. And that is something watching the second half specifically that I really focused on, is that the sound quality is fantastic. The 5.1 surround, and I go, look at everybody. Hulu, I'm looking at you. There's a couple other spots that just do this stereo bullcrap. Shutter's that way. They just do stereo. A really good 5.1 mix can change what you are watching from a good show to a great show. And this is one of those that certainly does that. The score is phenomenal. It's by the same guy who did a lot of the score for the Daredevil TV show. I think that's where most people would recognize his stuff from.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
So he's done that. He's done a ton of TV stuff and a couple video games and stuff like that. But really, really good. But the thing to me that really just chops it above all the others is the voice acting cast in this show is truly phenomenal.
And it's not just who they are, but it's
what
like
they're doing.
You can tell they're giving effort.
Yes.
You know, because you've seen some stuff where you've got a recognizable voice actor providing a voice, but they're clearly their heart's not in it. But
yeah, look at anything Norm Macdonald has done.
Yeah, everybody is really seems to want this to be as good a performance as they can give.
And I want to applaud two actors that I, not for any particular reason, I just wasn't overly familiar with a ton of their work. Sandra Oh, who I think I most recognize obviously from Grey's Anatomy, but I've never really watched Grey's Anatomy. And I've seen her in small other roles, and it's like,
Arliss.
she's good. And Arliss, of course. I've seen her in things, but I never really had that aha Sandra Oh moment. And this show is really like, I get to, even though it's, in audio only and what they've animated for us, I feel like I get to see a lot of her work here, and it's really good. And Steve Yeun gets that exact same treatment. Somebody who I was just like, he's fine in Walking Dead and a couple other things, but he started to become Mark for me in this, and I forgot about the person who was behind the voice. And I'll even go so far as to say we know it sounds like J.K. Simmons, but he kind of envelops the role of Omni-Man, and all of it is just very, very believable. There's never a time where it feels like we're looking at the camera and winking and going, oh, we know what this is. It's treated very seriously, and I love it.
And, J.K. Simmons is just, man, he's got a voice that's good. And he's a good actor, and it just fits Omni-Man so perfectly, it just seems like the right age range and everything. So that was probably the casting. If you could only keep one member of the cast, I think they put like all their chips on the table to keep J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, I think so. And not to say that anybody's, doing it, but if they made you take one and keep one and ditch the rest, that's the one I feel like you got to go with.
Oh yeah, he's your big superstar on this show for sure.
But even in roles that I didn't think would go so far, but have gone, like Jason Mantzoukas' character, he's not doing the Manzukic to 11 like he does in a lot of stuff, and I think that's really great. I was kind of surprised. It's still him and a little bit of his vibe and everything, but he doesn't feel like like scummy and everything like he does in a lot of the other roles that he does.
Yeah, I think he feels a little scummy. But Rexplode's supposed to.
Yeah, but not like not like some of those other roles where he's really bad.
Well, it's the thing that we talked about years ago, specifically with him, where he's got two roles he can play. He can either play scumbag or he can play scum bum, and he is definitely scum bum in this show.
That's some range there, man. Zukas.
Well, look, if you
don't got to tell me. You got something that works. Stick with it.
Absolutely. Well, geez, yeah, yeah. So and I love that when now he plays basically now he's voicing two different parts, and those performances are both very different from each other, which I love. And I love that they didn't do the thing that most comic book properties would do, which is that the second that Robot comes out with his new body, instantly Rexplode knows what's happened. And I think that a lot of comic book properties would have kind of parsed that out. It would have taken an entire half season to figure that out. Within 30 seconds of Rexplode seeing the new robot body, he's like, "Are you kidding me? How did this happen?" Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just what makes this show so different is that it does subvert expectations, but not in a ridiculous way.
Yeah, just even the fact that we have had this character for half of this season, and then all of a sudden you go, okay, guess what? Everything that you knew about that character, you might have had like a weird suspicion here or there, but you can always chalk that up to just being a robot, right? And then to find out, like, no, it's this little creature who's been like telepathically controlling this robot and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, and then it turns into, Basket Case meets The Fly.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It's amazing.
And I totally forgot because I've read every bit of Invincible for I can't remember. My daughter says that it's 18 trades. I don't believe that. I think it's probably more like 13.
Yeah,
but I'd have to see. But I had totally forgotten what happens with Robot, that he literally has to murder himself in order for the other one to go on.
Man, isn't that great?
It really is. And it's horrifying, and it's exactly what that character would do.
Yeah, and just
Man.
to have that, like, that little creature. I mean, like I said, we saw it in The Fly, where it's just like he's just holding on to that last little bit, and he's just like, you can just kill me. But it also, at the same time, too, gives us a good explanation of the power of these, these big giant marauder guys and everything. We kind of get their backstory more or less to understand how this technology works and how they clone stuff out. And it all seems to make sense. It's enough to where you just go, oh, it feels like they really thought this world out and everything.
I am literally struck speechless because this might be one of the best comic book adaptations I've ever seen, particularly in animation form, where it's not simply just retelling the comic, but it's also like the changes they make so much sense and they're done so well that you don't necessarily notice them. I mean, this is just really done well.
So, I hate being hyperbolic, and I have a tendency to do that. But as of this moment right now, I can't think of a better animated version of something than this. I really can't. Maybe All-Star Superman, maybe. But
no, this is better than that.
Oh,
I think
would say
so
it's
too.
better than that. Yeah, for sure.
I think so too. But I really did enjoy All-Star Superman. But this is doing something unlike anything I've seen as an adult, where it's holding my attention all throughout. I'm looking forward to the next episode of this. And we're doing it for the show, but I'm also doing it out of joy. Like, I just very much enjoy the show.
And, we probably ought to talk about this incredible arc within a season. Like in a lot of other shows, Mahershala Ali's arc would be the season.
Yeah.
And here it's like so easy to bookend it with stuff going on with Mark and Nolan that I almost forgot to even like mention it or talk about it. But that's just like this great, like triple cross, quadruple manipulation. I still have to go back and watch it again to figure out exactly how the strings were pulled. But that alone is just like a nice accomplishment all on its own. And that's what, 3 episodes?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically 2 episodes, and they're not even concurrent.
It's really strange, but you're on board with all of it. They do so much in so little amount of time. The fact that this is 10 episodes? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Within that amount of time, the amount of ground that they cover, just from getting to who all these characters are, where everything is going, and it feels like we're already in well-worn shoes as opposed to just trying to take this first season to really figure out exactly who we are. We're going off and we're running right with season 1 right away. And the cool part is that like you said, Sean, it is something that we haven't really seen before and stuff, but at the exact same time, there's so much to this that is familiar that it feels comfortable. It's comfortable in a new way, but you're seeing something in a different light, and it's being presented to you in a different way than you've seen it done before. And that's what I think is, what works about this, and what worked about, like Ultimate Spider-Man is like, it's the stories that you kind of knew, but in a new, different kind of twist and everything. And that's what this feels like. A lot of, like you said, versus the same sort of, Watchmen deal and everything. It feels like a 21st century version of that.
Well, the way that it feels very familiar is Mark himself, the character of Mark Grayson, because everything surrounding the character of Invincible is not familiar almost at all to comic books. But the character of Mark Grayson is very normal as a superhero. He's got, I don't know if I have powers. Now I have powers. Awesome. The only difference between him having powers and anyone else is that he enjoys having powers, which you don't see very often in comic books. But he is a very typical, normal character that you would see on any superhero property. And he let me give you an example here. Can you think of anything about this character that is different than anything that we've ever seen?
No,
not particularly.
But everybody else around him is different. And that's what makes it vastly cooler. And I'm wondering if that's done on purpose, because you have to have something that's grounded in something that's familiar, because everything around him is not. I mean, like
Yeah, you just like raised this incredibly cool point to me, because I'm thinking about it like you could put Mark Grayson in any of the CW superhero shows and he slides right in and fits in, but there's not a single other member of this cast that could make that transition. And it's kind of cool that way.
Yeah.
Kind of similar aspect to the way Mark Miller did Kick-Ass, where, you know, Kick-Ass himself is not why you read those comics at all.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It has nothing to do with the character of Kick-Ass. Although I do like Mark. I do like the character of Mark Grayson. And
Yes.
I like that, you know, because the character of Kick-Ass, I don't like that character.
Yeah.
But I do like Invincible. And the reason why I like Invincible is because he's hopeful. And, you know, like he is a force of good, and he doesn't complain about his lot in life.
And
you know?
he's really relatable. So you can absolutely experience that heartbreak with the issues he has with his dad.
Yeah.
And of course, also being a teen, you just go, a teenager probably wouldn't actually just explain that to somebody like an adult would and go, hey, here's the deal, here's all the stuff. You know, they just kind of go, well, I've got to hide this out. But it also plays into the, you know, kind of superhero trope and stuff as well. So it works and feels like it would actually feel.
And I do like, you know, I mean, I guess we're jumping all over the place, but I do like, as the main conflict of the season seems to be resolved, we see just like 80 different threats all brewing and ready to go for next season. So that's kind of what life is like, man. It's like you think, boy, as soon as I graduate high school and go off to college, my life begins. And you go off to college and like, man, as soon as I graduate college and get a job, my life begins. And then you get a job and you're like, man, I'm stuck in a rut. If I could just find a good person to get married to, everything would be just perfect from then on out. And then you get your divorce. And it's kind of like, I don't know, a really relatable life moment there at the end of this too, where it's like all your problems, now you can finally rest. And then life very rarely lets you say, okay, I'm at the point now where I'm cruising from here on out. That's something you think is going to happen someday. And I think all your life, you have to think it's going to happen, so you don't just give up, but I don't think it ever happens.
Well, Bruce, I think that you and I have a very similar life, like life statement, which is, I have everything I want. Why can't I be happy?
Yeah.
Like you and I are very, very similar in that aspect. But the thing that I like about the show is that it isn't that. Like because even at the end of the season, it doesn't feel like, oh man, that's way too much. Like it feels like, I can't wait to see what Mark does to this, like all of these storylines next year. And you know what, man, I kind of want to go back and like mark out what those plot threads are that we see at the very end of this season, and see how many of those they hit and when they hit. That would be a fun thing for me to do.
And also, I think the news that they've picked up not one but 2 seasons tells us really what they've done is they've picked up a 2-season story. So they're, you know what I mean? Like season 3 and season 2 are going to be developed concurrently, and it's all going to be working together. So it's not like they're picked up for 2 seasons. They're going to finish season 2, then go get to work on season 3.
Yeah. And you know, this is the best version of condensed storytelling that I've ever seen in modern comic book storytelling. You know, I know that people like to use that term when referring to the Stan Lee early Marvel stuff, like, oh, Spider-Man gets his powers in a page. Really great condensed storytelling. This is actual condensed storytelling, and it's terrific and it's well done. And the reason why it's so well done is because the makers of the show know that you already know what's happening with certain things. Like maybe we need to explain this. We definitely don't need to explain this. And they're really towing the line really well up to this point. Now watch this show fall off a cliff for season 2, kind of like the WB Marvel showed, or Flash did. Remember, we were so effusive of praise on Flash, and then it just fell off a cliff, and it was like, man, this sucks.
I don't want to break you. I don't want to break your spirit, but I did hear Berlanti's taken over in season 2.
Oh, good. No, that'll be great.
I read a headline on the website that said, like, Flash, can't we just admit that this is on life support and should pull the plug right now or something like that? So It happens.
Who is the showrunner on this? Do either of you guys know?
Oh,
I don't, because originally I thought that it was Seth Rogen and his guys, but it's not.
yeah, no, they're executive producers, I believe.
They're executive producers, but they're not the showrunners.
No. I'm not sure who the
with this being such a valuable property to Kirkman, like just his, it's like his first big thing, it's his baby. And with the way he was absolutely not given the best go around with AMC, I'm sure that he is in a position to really make sure this is a show he likes too. So I think that's probably part of what makes that condensed storytelling work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's out there doing interviews and stuff, so you don't really see him doing a ton of those. He does some, but not everywhere. But you're seeing him pop up on internet shows and stuff talking about this. So it feels like it's something that he's really proud of.
He should be. It's very good work.
Oh, so I want to talk about a couple other characters that I thought was like a really interesting thing. I liked Monster Girl and that whole conceit that, this 25-year-old woman can turn herself into this monster, very Hulk style and everything. But by doing that, she's staying the same age, but her body and everything is actually getting younger as she goes along. I thought that was a really interesting thing that I don't know that I've ever seen something like that before.
It really is a weird kind of body horror, and it puts that character in such a difficult position to write. And I don't know how well long-term Robot Man's solution to that problem is going to work out, because it still is weird all the way around.
Yeah, it's
You know what?
Go ahead.
You know what her storyline reminds me of is that old Stephen King book, Thinner.
Oh, Thinner, yeah.
Where, after a while, it sounds like a great idea. Ooh, I de-age a couple of years. Ooh, that sounds great. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse.
And she has to find Benjamin Button to have a meaningful relationship.
You ever see that, the Thinner movie?
No.
It's there's some pretty. It's honestly, for what it is, which is more like a Twilight Zone episode, if we're really honest with ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's okay. The fat suit's a little bit funny when you see it at the beginning, because it's just like, oh, come on now, come on now. It's no Nutty Professor. You know what I'm saying? It's just of so quality. You're just like, Dad, why are you wearing all this big fat suit? Never you mind, son. Gotta go upset a gypsy woman or some such. That's how it always starts in those things. That's a very EC Comics kind of start.
Yeah.
Another one is Walton Goggins is the most reserved he's ever been, and I really love it.
Yeah.
It's such a different kind of role for him. You can still tell that it's him, but he's not like a complete and outer out, gross human being, which he very often plays.
Man, he is turning in maybe performance number 2 for me behind J.K. Simmons. I'm really enjoying what he's doing with his Cecil. Is that the name of the character?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's fantastic. I was really kind of surprised at how well that worked. But I will say this: I'm not 1,000% behind the Amber character, Zazie Beetz. I think she does a fine job with the voice and everything. I think it's some way that it's animated. I don't know why. It just seems like she's a girl who's out of time or something. Like this chick would have been like really cool in 1998, 1999 or something.
Yeah, she has a little bit of that Daria. I know what you're talking about.
But there is a little bit of that.
There's I don't know that you would be this person in this time right now. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, if your if your show is written by a 50-something-year-old man, he's gonna remember Daria is like, hey, she's cool. Let's put her in. Oh, but this time let's make her African American.
And he's talked about that recently, and how when doing this show and everything, he kind of sat down and from what he says at least, there was no real studio thing. But he goes, I'd like, there's no real reason that Mark or Debbie have to be white or anything like that. So why not, give that shot to other people? And like I said, with these two actors, I think you've done, quite a heck of a job here. And just opening up those doors of opportunity of, giving you two actors that really bring a whole lot to this series. And I'm grateful for it.
So let me ask you this question. Do you guys think this is going to be the last project in a very long time where we're going to see Chris I can't pronounce his last name. Dementopolis.
Now, why is that name familiar to me?
Dementopolis. He is one of the guys who was first accused during Me Too. And more things came out to the point where that new Zack Snyder movie where they're fighting all the zombies, they digitally replaced him with Tig Notaro.
I was hoping you'd say Chris Plummer.
That's a different guy.
Oh, different guy.
That's a different guy. That's not this gentleman. Because that's who I thought you were talking about. It's Chris D'Elia that you're thinking about. That's not this gentleman.
D'Elia.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris Dementopolis.
Yeah, I think this guy that you mentioned is actually more of a voice actor and fairly prolific.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Let me look him up here. Man, I feel like an idiot right now.
No, that's all right.
Oh, he played Mo in the Three Stooges movie.
Yes.
You wouldn't know him without that mop top, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that movie and you're a fan of any Three Stooges stuff, that movie's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's not horrible.
Now, what if you're not a fan? Do you like it? Would you like it because it's not the same thing that it was from the 30s?
Maybe, but I doubt it.
Okay.
I like the idea that somebody says, I went to see the Three Stooges movie and I didn't like it. And somebody says, well, I normally don't like the Three Stooges, so get me a ticket post-sweet.
Sign it up right now.
You like how I mixed post-haste and toot sweet and made post-sweet? That's my new thing.
That's your new phrase.
Now, Adam, I think on the first time we reviewed Invincible, we totally dropped the ball on many people's favorite internet meme around this show, and that's the fact that an adult Bobby Hill now works for Cecil.
Oh yes, so good. Yes. And he valiantly gave his life and everything. Hopefully he'll be back. Man, if that would have been voiced... I don't know why Mike Judge made this choice at the time, but Bobby's favorite comic book character was Invincible, which, it's Invincible. So that almost seems like maybe it's a little too close.
Are you sure that's not a Photoshop? Are you sure that's not a Photoshop?
No, because I've watched King of the Hill, man. He liked Lettuce Head and Invincible. Those are things I remember.
Yeah, in that case, that is 100% what this is about.
Yeah, but he had his fake carrot top and then he read Invincible. But yeah, I did an Invincible episode of Heroes and Villains like 6 years ago, and we talked about Bobby Hill reading Invincible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's totally a nod to Bobby Hill. That's great because it looks so obvious. It looks like an adult Bobby, and then that's great.
Yeah, Turnabout is fair play. Like the only two places where Invincible comics have shown up are King of the Hill and Walking Dead. Walking Dead, I get it.
You understand that one.
Oh, one of the things that we didn't talk about last time either is that in the books themselves, Invincible's favorite comic book series is Science Dog.
Yes.
But because there is now a comic book put out by Kirkman called Science Dog, now they have to make it Seance Dog,
which is crazy
because there's no comic book called Seance Dog.
Now, the thing that gets me is this has to be a little bit of a work for hire thing where what's the name of Kirkman's company? Sky Dancer or something like that.
Okay.
Wow. I can't. He's with Sky Dancer. That's a lot.
No, it's got a name like that, but it's his own company. Skybound.
Tiny Dancer.
Skybound. It's Skybound. I couldn't think of it. I was fixated on the sky. So this must be an issue where even though he did create Science Dog, Image must own it and not Skybound, because he would just use it to promote his own property, I think, if he still owned it.
Sure.
Well, if it's with Image, though, isn't it his?
Yeah, he would still own it, right?
No, not now.
Oh, really? They changed all that?
Well, I'm talking as if I know more than I actually do.
I don't think so. I think they still own all their. I think they still own all their stuff.
Then why wouldn't he just leave it as Science Dog?
Maybe he's trying to keep that window open for another dog-related program.
Maybe he wants Amazon to fork out $1,200 more per episode.
He probably has a development deal at this point, right? With probably Amazon. So that might be part of the development deal is, oh, hey, we're also going to make Science Dog.
It's also one of those weird things, like for a while, if I don't know, you could like Jerry Seinfeld would talk about he loved to read Superman comics. And like for a while, you could just reference that stuff as a thing, but now it seems like you can't do that anymore. Like it has to be this fake, it has to be Diet Pepsi instead of Pepsi, only they're doing that with like comic book characters now, even when it's a non-comic book related property.
Boy, oh boy, do I hate that. I hate the fake comics, the fake sports teams, the fake video game sounds and stuff that you see. All of that stuff in movies is just garbage. Pay somebody, at least like when David Fincher did The Social Network. That it's Sony was the company that put it out. And if you've seen any Sony movies, you'll know that Sony slaps their name on every piece of electronics that is in that entire movie to where you will know it's a Sony movie because everything they use is a Sony. And
yes, I have seen a Spider-Man movie.
Yes. And so David Fincher said, nah, not for me, it ain't. And I'll put whatever I want in there. And he's got the clout to be able to kind of push that aside and just go like, nope, I want, this needs to be this needs to be that. They're not going to, frugal.com. They're going to Google just like everybody else does because that's real life. And I'll pay for it if I have to. I use Birdie
instead of Twitter in my movie I'm making.
So you hate all fake sports teams? So what about the LA Knights from The Last Boy Scout, who Billy Cole plays for, and he shoots a bunch of people during Friday Night Football?
It's so bad. There's
I
always
love Friday Night Football though.
Weird things.
Friday night's a great night for football.
That sounds like sounds like both an actual XFL show and XFL team. I like it.
Well, it looks like an XFL team, and it sounds like something the XFL would have done before it was owned by Dwayne Johnson.
But it did. Are they back for that? Because I know maybe pandemic threw it all off.
He owns it, but I don't know if they've done anything with it. He's a very, very busy man.
Yeah, I don't know how he sleeps. I don't think that he does. Probably vampire. Just putting it out on Front Street. I think
he's eating babies.
He's actually twins, and nobody knows it.
Oh, now I'll tell you the Mahler twins, that's your Rock character right there. If they did a live action Invincible and they had that, it would totally make sense. I'd buy that coming from that face.
Fellas, he ain't leaving DC at this point.
Well, no, he's stuck in core because he's not. They can't afford to take him anywhere else.
When you said he ain't leaving DC at this point, I really thought you meant politics, Sean. I was puzzled for a minute.
He's going
I was
straight to the presidency.
He's making way, way too much money to become a politician at this point.
It's just like, yeah, would you like to take a 3,000% pay cut? Because that's what you'd be doing. Not smart in my opinion. And
you want to follow the Schwarzenegger course for your career
and get nothing but blame because no matter what you do, you're always going to be the bad guy.
The debates would be awesome if they did them like shoot style WWE.
Yeah. Well, listen, I would love to see people, get a chair across the back of the neck,
or even just the way he would, cut a promo into the microphone. The Rock can come up with some ridiculous strings of words to put together, and I think that would be kind of fun to see. But unfortunately, he would try to prove he's not that way, and it would only hurt him.
So where do we think season 2 is? Well, 2 and 3, I guess, are going. Do we? I mean, because I don't know from the comics. What's kind of our next arc, or do you think that we're going to stick to anything like that?
Well, Omni-Man's coming back.
Yeah. So yeah, he's left the coop there and everything, and we're to think that maybe perhaps he's never coming back. But his type has never flown away before. He's never given up, his ground and everything. Right. So this is very new and weird and strange.
I don't think it'll be quickly. I don't think it'll be an episode or two, but I could totally see halfway through the season, he's back.
I think also just from the little bit I know about the comics, in the latter portion of its run, Kirkman started kind of retreading material and did like a reboot where all of a sudden it was Mark's first day again and he didn't know what was going on. I think he probably has an end game for season 3. I feel like it's going to be 3 seasons and he's told his story.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And then if he wants to do more with it, you move on to live action or something else. But I kind of feel like Kirkman, as much as his involvement is with it, part of that getting picked up for 2 seasons was he wouldn't let them have just 1, but 2 lets him tell the story he wants to tell, and the show doesn't wind up like The Walking Dead, which is literally The Walking Dead is a metaphor for that show at this point.
No, I think that's a really great idea. And we've talked about this before with different shows and stuff. You know, having this short schedule here of these shows and then, a couple of seasons and then boom, you're done. You will go down as a much more respected television show than you will that one that stuck it out and, just became a dog at the end.
Mm-hmm. And in recent years, Kirkman ended the Invincible run. He ended the Walking Dead run in comics. He seems to have had an appreciation for finishing something. And I think that might carry on over to this. Also, it helps when you got a billion other projects you could be working on too if you want to.
Yeah,
but you could also never work again and be totally fine.
Yeah, it's totally tough to when someone just goes like, "Hey, would you like to continue making more bucket loads of money?" And you're like, "Okay, if I got to, I'll sign on and do this again." But knowing when you've got endings and stuff and having enough money, I would guess then that you can really just decide and control all of your stuff. And really the quality of it then I think can, easily go up if, you're the guy who's steering the ship.
Can I tell you my hopes and dreams for Robert Kirkman?
Okay.
I'm hoping what happens to him is basically the inverse of what happened to Stan Lee, meaning that he gets older and much appreciated and very, very, and accolades and everyone's super nice to him as they should be. He's done a whole lot of work and he blazed some trails that he was made fun of 15 years ago by people in the industry who were big names like him. And he did it anyway. And now he's, a multi-billionaire because of the moves that he made. But what I'm hoping for is that as he gets older, he's sort of the Magneto to Stan Lee's Charles Xavier.
I see where you're going.
You know what I'm saying? To where he's still as salty as he was 10 years ago, even though I don't think he is. I think that he's a much more chilled out person than he was before he had money. But I would love to see old Kirkman, I would have done it totally different, stuff like that. And I don't want to go for a photo op with this new version of Invincible when he's in his 70s. You know what I mean?
I think because all the interviews that I was listened to with him and stuff, I was really surprised because at that time specifically it was all just Walking Dead, and to hear him talk, he's this nice guy from the South, just coming in and talking to you and it feels like he's got such a good head on his shoulders, and certainly at this point, he's very well. Yeah, exactly. He's very secure in everything, and you're right. He does have that kind of I'll take a couple jabs here and there, but it never feels like evil. It feels like he's kind of jabbing and having fun.
He was I don't know, I dare not say the first, but among the first who actually made their way to the top via Image, because all the wave before him at Image were all people who'd made it in the big two to prove they could.
Yeah.
And then they went to Image to make the dollar bills flow. And he was the first guy to kind of really reach comic book superstar writer status without the big two. And I think some of the guys who, because he didn't come up the way they did, they might have had a chip on his shoulder that he couldn't have. It's easy if you just start with Image. We didn't have that option.
But he did start with Marvel, right?
He had some of those.
Yeah, because he has that awesome run on Captain America, and he has that good run on
but he wasn't like McFarlane and Lee and everybody.
I was going to say I don't think it was like with Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee and even Rob Liefeld at the time. I don't think he was bringing a fan base with him when he went to Image. I think he found his fan base through Image, and I that's just my take on it. Not trying to say anything's right or wrong.
Man, you know way more about this than I do.
But because the wave before him, you didn't come to Image until you were sort of secure enough that it wasn't a risk,
and that you could sell your name on it, because they slapped your name everywhere on that book, so you knew exactly who was there.
I think here's what I would say. Let's say that there's, a comedy troupe where somebody has already been well known from being on some sketch shows on TV or something like an SNL, a Mad TV, and they come to this small, lesser known of troupe, and they're bringing an audience with them, whereas you have no audience, but you build it up within that troupe, and they might almost feel like you were a bit of a parasite. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
I do get it. It's like that dude that was on SCTV who then moved to Saturday Night Live and no one knows his name, Tony something or other. I can't remember his last name. I know exactly who you mean.
And it's like, this was our retirement plan, and somehow you managed to get into the retirement plan and you never contributed to the 401k the hard way.
Right.
Yeah, that's
you never had to work for 12 cents on the dollar like we did for I mean, and he did do it, but he didn't achieve acclaim that I'm aware of.
Right, but
prior to his image work.
And that was the big deal with him, between Kirkman and dude who was super prolific, wrote Miles Morales, Spider-Man Forever.
Bendis.
Bendis. Yeah. I mean, Bendis is the person that we're talking about here. Bendis was ridiculous on going after Kirkman, because Kirkman was like, treat DC and Marvel like they are, like to bring you up, to treat them like school, and then go do your own stuff where you get all of the proceeds. And Bendis was just awful towards Kirkman about that for years, until then there was The Walking Dead. And then Bendis no longer made fun of the man.
Yeah, when you start producing results like this, I mean, it's impossible to deny at that point. And he's really gotten that place. Like you said, even if it was if you had just Invincible or just Walking Dead alone, we'd know who you are for a very, very long time. But the fact that he continues to, compound things up and get bigger and better, and it's in a land of television and stuff where, let's be honest, most of the other people, especially the people in Image, have never really cracked. Not really. Some of them a little bit, like the Spawn cartoon show. Can you really count that?
I mean,
not really.
I think the closest would be Liefeld and McFarlane, but it's there was that awesome Savage Dragon cartoon that we got to cover.
Yeah, but even then, like
Do
much
we
of
have
that.
to?
Well,
No, we don't.
We don't have to, but we probably will at some point.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm just glad that he's doing what he's doing, and the fact that he can do it through Image and keep receiving that giant amount of money. I'm sure at the Image offices they were like, "Why did we give them all of the rights? Maybe we should have given them like half or something." But it's really good for creators and stuff like that, and so I think that really will be ultimately the lasting legend of Image, is what they've done for creators like him.
Yeah.
All right, let's get down to it, boys and girls, before we finally give our review here for the full season of Invincible. We have to ask ourselves one very important question, is how this show relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Hey, Sly, it's Sweet Shanzi again. I have a question for you. When God sings to his creations, will Michael Dorn not be part of the choir? Michael Dorn has been part of nerd life since 1987, when he first played Lieutenant Worf on Star Trek The Next Generation. He's the voice of Battle Beast on the TV show Invincible, but he wasn't always the OG nerd actor. He started his career in 1965 on Days of Our Lives. That man is old, where he played the role of Jimmy, and he was on the series for 2 years. He kicked around Hollywood for about 10 years, playing small parts on TV shows like Punky Brewster, Give Me a Break, and Chips. But in 1976, Michael Dorn played the role of Apollo Creed's bodyguard in the original Rocky, which brings the question, just how big a dude is Michael Dorn that it made sense that he played the heavyweight champion of the world's bodyguard? He's listed as 6'2", but I'm 6'3", and no one would ever think of casting me as a boxer's bodyguard. But look, this isn't about me, although it kind of is. It's more about finding this show's Stallone connection, and this week's Stallone connection is none other than OG nerd Michael Dorn. And there it is, Mr. Stallone. That's how you're connected to this movie. I hope to hear from you soon. This is the 354th time we've tried this bit. I'll do better next week. Thank you. Your new best friend, Sweet Shanzi from the internet.
I think old Michael Dorn has a painting that's turning old in his basement or something, man. Because that guy
is crazy.
Not aging at all.
I could not believe when I read his first acting role was on Days of Our Lives in the mid-'60s.
And if you ever met him, heck of a nice guy, too. Just real personable and everything. Got that just warm smile and that voice. Oh, that voice. That's a good dude right there. All right. Let's get to our Robin rating here at Hear Movie Podcast. It's a Robin rating system. If you don't know what that means, head on over to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hear Movie Podcast. Right there at the top of the screen. Bruce, where does season 1 of Invincible fall on the Robin rating system for you?
Man, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to give it a Mark Grayson.
Oh,
terrible.
Game changer.
All right, a Mark Grayson. Sean?
I'm going to give it a Dick Grayson as well. I love the show. I look forward to the show. I look forward to the show being back. I hope that it does not dip. I hope it stays the same level. And I can't wait for more to come out. It's a Dick Grayson for me.
Yeah, Dick Grayson's all around. I really enjoyed this. Like, I didn't particularly know what to expect going in. I remember seeing images of Invincible and copies of Wizard back in the day and everything, and you're just like, oh, all right, what's that? And it just never really caught it for me. So I didn't know what to quite expect going in. And as much as I enjoyed that first half, the second half really kicks it up. And just, there's, like I said, there's so many things that are going on to where it's just like, I can't believe they're covering all this amount of ground in this little amount of time. It's done quite well. So yeah, that's Dick Grayson's all around, everybody. We'll be looking forward to season 2 and not too awful long. Hopefully they won't do that thing where they go, oh, we're shooting 2 seasons. You'll get this season after, like 6 months from now, because this is when this thing ended. They don't want a Boba Fett us. That's what Mandalorian us. That's what I'm saying. That seems, no thanks.
It seems likely.
More than likely, though. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of Hear Movie Podcast. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a moment. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm always inviting people to check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie, covering lots of Demon Slayer for the past 2 weeks, and it's paid off. The channel's growing, so please come check it out if you haven't yet. Get on it now, people. This channel's blowing up, and you need to be there as soon as it's starting to. It's starting to kick up there, man. A lot of conversation and stuff going on in the comments and everything. Gotta love it. Yeah, crossed over 1,000 subscribers last night, so it's a big deal to me.
Yowza.
Beautiful. Sean, what else?
You can find more of our work at 30 Questions, where each week with a new nerdy show, we ask 30 questions of that show. We'll be hitting Loki next, right? Loki.
Yep. That sucker's gonna come quick.
Yes, it is. But in the meantime, check out, just type into your podcatcher 30 questions and a million of our shows will pop up.
It's fun times. And, of course, check out the Film Find this week. I'll be joined by Krista from the Unspoiled Network. We're going to be talking about the movie Heathers. She's not the first lady that I've talked to that really enjoys Heathers, and I'm always intrigued by the ladies that are like, Heathers is my favorite movie. I need to find out why. So we'll be talking about that over at the Film Find. Next week, we're taking a look at Dull Man. Bruce already screwed up and watched this 2 weeks ago, and you've been quiet on us, Bruce, so I don't know if that's a good sign or not.
No, I'll just put it this way. I will rewatch.
Okay, good deal. And that's available on Tubi right now, right?
Yes.
All right, so check that out on Tubi. Dull Man is next week. That'll do it for this episode. Join us next week when we're talking Dull Man. For Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.